This is episode 25. We shall now begin a very important topic of our great concern. As much as it is of great concern to Arjuna, what Bhagwan is advising him, and I will just repeat what we said or the slok that we did last time, slok 31. Swadharmam api cha vekshana vikampitum arhasi dharmyati yuddhyat shreya anyat kshatriyasya na vidyate. We talked about this slok that knowing that our swadharma, if looking at our swadharma, in other words, everybody is required to observe their nature, their dharma, their duties, their obligations, their responsibilities. So, considering all that, one should not try to waver in their duties or their decisions that he has made, Arjuna has made. For Lord says that this righteous war is great and most fortunate situation available to a Kshatriya, because that would not only providing him to show that he is a genuine Kshatriya or a human being who will perform his duty, but he will also show that all the other attachment that he may have, he will be able to overlook. Only then he will be considered a real Kshatriya. In other words, the foremost duty is to perform our duty that it has come to us. For a Kshatriya, it is to fight, and of course, a just war. These opportunities do not come quite often. In other words, he has not invited the war, but it has come upon it. So everything he does is going to be to his benefit. He is going to advance because he didn't call upon the war. War was thrust upon him. He has to now defend, that is duty, and in doing so, whatever happens is to his advantage. Yadru ichaya cha upapannam swargadvaram apavrutam sukhinah kshatriyaha partha labante yuddham idrusham. Hey Parth, this kind of war that came to you without asking, you did not ask it wasn't your desire to fight, it just came upon you, then it is really for you a great opportunity or a gate to heaven or happiness or lifting yourself upward as in this journey, this Bhavsagar journey, as we advance towards our ultimate freedom and moksha. It is very fortunate for Kshatriyas, the soldier like you or king like you, it is a happy opportunity to face this kind of war. In other words, unless we have a test or opportunity, we would not prove our real worth. We may be talking about it, we may be boasting about it, but when the time of test comes, then we would know how we actually performed and whether we were really what we said we were. So here for Arjun then, the real test is whether he is a genuine Kshatriya and a king, or he is going to act like a normal person, attached to his family, and then is willing to overlook his duties, which is very important. अथ चेत्त्वम् इमं धर्म्यं संग्रामं न करिष्यसि ततः स्वधर्मं कीर्तिं च हित्वा पापम् अवाप्स्यसि. Now, if you don't do this righteous, this slok number 33, if you don't do this, perform this righteous war, if you don't fight this thing, because it is righteous, it is just, it has to be fought, even according to God, according to the law of the world in which we have to keep this organization. We cannot have the world in which everything is disorganized. There are laws to be followed. There has to be justice. There is right and wrong. All these things has to be maintained, and that would not be maintained if everybody do not perform their duties. King, of course, has the greatest duty to keep the entire kingdom in order. So if he doesn't do this thing, tataha swadharmam kirtim cha hitva, then you would have lost your fame, your honor, and not only that, but you will incur sin. In other words, I think that worst thing could happen is to incur a sin by not defending or performing our duty. This then brings to us a very important thing. We've been talking about Arjun, and Arjun has his certain duties, fine, but question is usually asked, what does that mean to me, or how does this Gita applies to me? I am not Arjun, and yet the message to Arjun, I need to understand if at all it applies me in my life so that I can benefit out of it. Hmm. So, I think that I would like to take few moments to see how this applies to us who are in the world, and particularly the grahasthis or the family life, or people who are married, and mostly the whole world. Uh, we are family people. We have mentioned before that even Sanatan Dharma has divided our life into four ashramas or four stages, student life and then the married life. We should be talking more about married life because I think most of you have that concern. Even if we are not married, we have real connections with our brothers and sisters who might be married, and of course our parents. So it is a very much of a concern to us as to what yuddha, what war we have to fight. Arjuna has to fight is just war. What is just war for us? So that we will not incur sin, so that we, in the eyes of God, we would uplift ourselves, as he says about heaven, and heaven means uplifting ourselves. We want to advance. This human life is given to us to move forward towards moksha. So let us see what might be our concern and how to address our concerns so that just like Arjun we will be advancing. I think at one time I had mentioned that of all the four ashrams, family ashram is one of the most important one, because if there was no family ashram, then there will be no, we will not be born and we wouldn't be here. Even the saints have their parents who are in the family life. Grahastha ashram. So the saints respect the family ashram or Grahastha ashram because they know that their parents who gave them birth, they respect them, and therefore I also pay the same respect that we who are married or those who are in the family need not think that they have no opportunity or that they have to be sansari, but the Gita is addressed mostly to the worldly, because it's the worldly who have most of the problems out of ignorance. People who are sannyasis or who have realized God or who has reduced their desires and advanced, for them there may be less need for Gita than those who are in the worldly life or in the family ashram. It is like if you are sick, then alone you need medicine. If you are not sick, you certainly don't need medicine or go to see doctor. Gita is our doctor. In my 30 years, and even more than that, not only 30 years of my studies of Gita, but even before, my association with friends and also, I would say, at least 50 years of experience of what I have observed, what I have seen, experienced, and I'm sure that some of it you will also match your own experience. I would like to point out that what are the duties of a family. In family, there is a husband, there is wife, and possibly, of course, children. There are also, at times, there might be parents with you or brothers and sisters. But mainly, husband and wife and children will be our immediate concern, even though we'll include all other concerns if you have other than this also. Now, the yuddha or the duty of a family, husband and wife, this should have been taught to us even before we get married, right from childhood, so that we know what we are doing. Everything we do has responsibilities, obligations, or duties, and that is what we will call dharma. You have obligations, you have responsibilities. We are not saying that we are trading or something, but these are necessarily obligations that we have to do whether we like it or not. It's like buying a car, then we have obligations to pay the payments and maintain it, and use it properly for our objective. Now we find that in the Bay Area or even in the United States and in general, uh, places like big cities also worldwide, we would have these general problems. So I don't necessarily want to pin down only this particular area, but presently in the worldwide situation, when we see there is a tendency that in a married life we find that both husband and wife are working. I do not have the statistics, but I have found many cases, almost rarely, that if a wife is not working, that is for going out for a job or for the sake of money. I think that will be a rare case that she is not working. It is vice versa. In old days, it was other way around. Now then, if both of them are working for money, now that is what we mean. We need the means. So if wife is also working for money and husband is also working for money, then we have to find out that there is something wrong, why both of them need to work. In a very rare situation, wife would need to work if husband was handicapped or he could not provide the means, but even then we will have to re-examine the situation. So I would say that when both of them work, our scriptures, and I have scanned the scriptures, and I honestly believe what our saints have recommended, what they have gone through for thousands of years, that caused a happy family life. That is how they made the rules. So according to the rules, then wife would be necessarily staying home, particularly when she is young and she has children, because her main duty will be really to take care of children if she wants children and if she has them. Another aspect will be both of them are working, then necessarily both of them would get tired. They come in the evening, and of course, when you are tired, the family life is also ruined. So, we do recommend that wife need not work. It is not required of her to work, and if she is working, there is something misunderstanding or not understanding our dharma properly. First and foremost dharma that we would have is what we are going to examine. But we already start on a wrong foot when wife also has to work. And we see that why does wife want to work? Why does she need to work? What has economy done to us? In the name of advancement or progress, I think that we have become slave of ourselves. We don't think properly. We are usually carried away by pride or social competition. These might be some of the factors, and then we may buy a big house because everybody else is buying bigger houses, even though we may not need it. We may have expensive cars. Uh, we get carried away because everybody else does. Whether we like it or not, we don't like to say so, but we wonder why we would be doing so unless we are carried away because everybody else is doing, and we will feel that we are not capable if we don't have a bigger house or a bigger car. So we have to do it whether we can even afford to do it or not. So this really then behind this would be pride and vanity, and these are our enemies. I really think that if we have bigger house than we need or a more expensive car, there is nothing but pride and vanity which is going to come more and more. So we are really slaves of the house or car or things, and we are going to miss out. First of all, wife has a double duty. If she works, she still has to come home. If there are children, she will have to take care of house, and necessarily we cannot expect a person to have double job or double performance. We have limited energy, and so then we will be missing out in performing our household duties. Uh, Another problem would be if wife is working, is that children will be probably put to babysitters uh, or to the old parents. You will even invite your old parents from India to look after your children, or you might put them children to child care. This has happened. I know of lots of cases, and it is really unfortunate that a mother giving birth to children and that she has to put in care of either child care or old parents or babysitters. Even old parents, they are grandparents. The children are supposed to be raised by the mother and not grandmother. If mother is not there, that may be a different issue. But even if grandmother is there, it is the mother alone who has given birth necessarily can give love. And what the way Lord has made the situation, even in the animal kingdom, we find that only the child's mother can nurse and feed the child, not the grandmother. Otherwise, she will have to feed by bottle, and that is unnatural. We know that whether we like it or not, whether we are used to these so-called modern methods, we certainly are transcending natural laws that even animals don't do. They don't even put their children in the care of somebody else. The mothers are always with children, whether it's tiger, lion, elephants, dogs, and any animal or creatures or birds we take. So certainly human beings are expected to do that much of their own creation. So the children miss the love. A suckling baby in the lap of mother gets more love than just feeding a bottle, whether the father is feeding or grandmother is feeding or whether it's in child care. Certainly we are missing the duty, whether we know it or not. It is unnatural, and I am sure it's not very pleasing to God when we see the natural laws. So I would certainly feel that these are some of the problems we create. Another thing is when we buy big homes and we create our own excessive needs, more than we need. Then we go into stock markets. Again, we are after money. We, in the name of investments, it is nothing but gambling. Our recent experience tells us what happened to the market and our investment. So one thing leads into other. The one mistake we made basically that because of the social pressure or our ignorance, because we went into big houses and big expensive cars and big other things to show off, even though we don't need it, the pride and vanity is causing us all this pressure. So though these are imaginary pressure, we don't really have to. If you honestly think nobody really cares for you, you think that the world cares for you, but if you starve or if you don't have it, you will have to pay for yourself. So all this imaginary social pressure that we call is just an imaginary, it's a dream world, and I think that we should better awaken ourselves, that we better try to please God. Our job is to please God rather than pleasing the other people, and we are not even pleasing ourselves. In the name of peer pressure or social pressure, which is a great illusion. So let's be individual. Let's think about ourselves. Let's think about God. Let's think about God's laws. And irrespective of what others do, we don't have to carry away because lot of people can be wrong. As a matter of fact, Saint says that most of the people are wrong. And so let's not follow the crowds. There are other issues also concerned, like parents have always expectations. Children are telling me sometimes, the teenagers, that there is a pressure of bringing A grades, uh, particularly the Indian families, and I'm sure I think that the immigrants in general, I have heard and read in the newspaper, have a great pressure that they should have good grades, understandably, so that they will have a job. But to put a pressure is against the law of nature. I think that we should teach our children to perform best they can. They should be responsible. They should spend certain time. They should have time to play also. After all, they are growing up children. They need to have sports and all. We should not say that you should bring A grade at any cost. And I don't think that A grade makes a person. It is the honesty, sincerity, overall personal development. All these things are more important than merely A grade. That is again sort of a pride, and it is just like when person tries to be more rich than others. Similarly, we want to say that, well, our children are all A grade, and then you are comparing, well, somebody else might not be A grade student. It is a prestige. Often we are trying to pamper ourselves, and in so feeling and comparing ourselves with other parents, we are pressuring our children, and they then, of course, do not like it, they resent it, and later on we'll pay, and it is not even necessary.
Yeah.
I would personally think that even if they got B grade, but they were overall better, they had a more sanskar, they were more all-rounded thing, and they were doing their best, then we should accept the grade. I think grade is not everything. Even Mahatma Gandhi said that too. So whatever I am saying is not only from experience, but is according to Gita or according to our scriptures and wisdom. All that we are talking is for your good. I think in the long run, children will be happy, wife will be happy, husband will be happy, everybody will be happy if we try out what we are talking about here. We also know that in family, particularly wives spend more time in watching TVs if they are not working, or even in the weekend or whatever, as much time as they get, what they call soap operas. They get addicted to these shows. This is because we don't know anything better in life. We have not been trained right. We don't know the purpose of life. Such a human life, as we have said in the past, most fortunate to have a human life. It is so rare, as we have said, and yet we spend time in watching useless shows and we get addicted to it. It is just like drugs or other aspect of life. Sometime nowadays I hear that in computers some people get addicted to chat rooms. So all these things, as if we are wilding away our time, we don't know what else to do. But if we knew that we have duties, and we know we have duties, we should not have extra time at all. That means somewhere we have missed the duty. Either we are not keeping the house clean, or we are not paying attention to the kids, or we are not cooking right, that is necessary for the mother. And there are many refined duties that we may have dropped to find this extra time to while away. I think God has made our life in such a way that you really don't have extra time. If you have any extra time after performing your real duties, it should be spent in meditation, in studying scriptures, in advancing ourselves towards God, if at all we have more time, and actually we should find some time. But certainly we should have no time to wild away or chit chat with neighbors or the television. Once in a while, it's all right as a human being. Some weaknesses are allowed. We can't say that we are all saints in the family life, but in spite of that, certainly there is no reason, or we just cannot see how for hours and hours. I know some devotees, I used to give little homework for them to study Gita, and if it would be half an hour a day, they wouldn't have half an hour. They say, well, I don't have half an hour to write the sloks, but I have watched them 2 to 3 hours of watching operas, and the soap operas I have myself watched. For weeks and weeks I have seen. They will drop everything when the TV time comes, but they will not have that much energy to do the homework for their own sake, or for achieving their own good in spiritual life, which is requirement. So if we see that these small things that I am pointing out, another thing, sometimes we make shopping as a hobby. Not that we need things, but we don't know anything else to do. We don't seem to have a aim or goal in life. We just want to pass time because we get bored. Well, the very boring tells us that we have missed our duty somewhere. We should be always happy in doing things. Something is wrong if you complain that you are not happy in the family life. You got married, you asked for it, God has provided you all these things, and now you are complaining. I think that it will be very difficult for us to justify all our complaints that we normally do against each other, like husband complaining wife, or wife complaining against husband, or children, and so forth. I think that this is certainly very childish, and there is no wisdom in it. We must try to realize this thing, and sooner we realize and reorganize our life, I think we will be more happier than we think. At least I would hope that you try it out for a few years and see if you find more peace than what you have been getting now. Just ask yourself, are you really happy? You have no complaint against husband, no complaint against wife or children, and you will honestly find you have got plenty of them, because I know that you come to me with the complaints. And the worst thing is that the wife complains that husband should change, and husband thinks that wife should change, and I don't think anybody wants to change anyway. So again, we don't know the laws that govern us is that we are supposed to change ourselves rather than trying to change others. And years after years, the same complaint remains. Things don't change. We don't want to hear the good medicine that we get from Gita, but we want to continue to complain. And this is what I have found. So I think that if anything, if there is any truth in this, to whatever degree in your life you want to re-examine, that instead of complaining about other family members, each family member try to find out what they have. They may have a need to correct. There might be something wrong. If you don't know, find, ask some saint or wise person, or be honest to yourself, and you will find out that you have a lot to correct yourself. So God expects that we all correct ourselves rather than correct each other. To correct others is for others to mind their business and God can help them, but it is not our business. If you keep trying it against the real law, then I think we are going to fail. As a matter of fact, we are failing it. We may say that we are changing our children by forcing them, but they might be out of fear or out of because they are helpless. They know they depend on you. They need your money. They need your support. They need all this education. So they may not say anything. But the moment they are going to be independent, they will bring out and tell you what they did not like, and that resentment then remains for a long time. We do not want to see that. So I think that if we can treat our children when they are 16 and above as friends rather than father, and then they have to obey like a soldier, it is not a military situation, that we should be doing it out of love, trying to understand each other, trying to help each other rather than always wanting my way. I've noticed that some fathers always want their way, or mothers want their daughters their way, that they should marry or do this or do that. Always our way. We hardly want to listen to children, what they want, what they are capable of, why they are saying so. We don't even give them a chance to say, express, and analyze. We sometimes have an answer even before they are through asking us a question. I think I've heard that, and that is very unfortunate. That shows how much egotistic, how much vanity we have, how much pride has taken over us that we are not willing to listen, even analyze the problem before we answer to a particular question. There is another problem, as I say, is communication or interfacing, as the modern language says. I don't think husband and wife are interfacing. In other words, understanding each other, what each other's nature is. I think we should expect each other have different natures. We have to learn to live with it. That's the price we have to pay for the joys that you expected from the marriage and you had it, whatever it was. And now, when it comes to paying the price, in other words, to bear with each other instead of finding faults, trying to understand each other, trying to cooperate with each other, sympathize with each other, and uplift each other, we only complain. So, spirituality and the laws of the Grihastha ashram are giving us what am I talking in a very simple way, in a what is an observed way. So, let us not have always our way. Let us have that should be God's way or it should be the right way rather than my way. And usually we being full of egotistic way and full of egoism, our way is not right with ego. Anybody who has an ego, his way is not right. That's period. And there is nobody who doesn't have ego. So that means our way is not right. And therefore we must go to Gita or saints or somebody who is wiser than we are so that they can help us. There is nothing wrong if we make mistake, but we must learn and we can correct it. We have an opportunity. We are not condemned forever if because we made mistake in the past. After you hear this, if you feel like you want to restructure your life, I think it will be wonderful. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.